The following podcast is intended for mature audiences. If you enjoy our work, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow the links in the description. Thanks for your support, and enjoy.
Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the man I will chase to my death with an incredible amount of passion and rage, the boy.
Hey?
It's movie relevant. I don't know what you want from me. We're here today.
It's kind of threatening.
With some, well, I mean, fuck, you watched the film. Some more Netflix Roulette. Today's film is called Welcome to the Punch.
Yeah, they made it movie relevant, too. They
Poorly.
No.
I'm
going to Google if that's the actual name for those things.
I don't care if it is. That's a stupid fucking name for this movie.
Yeah, they didn't even punch any people.
No, people got punched.
But it wasn't the final battle should have been punching. It wasn't, spoilers.
Boy, why don't you set this movie up? It was something from your list, and I'm going to hold you accountable for it.
Accountable? This was fun. This movie was on here because James McAvoy is in it. That's why it was on my Netflix queue.
I didn't realize you had such a strong cleaving to James McAvoy.
I really liked him, and he's one of my favorite parts of X-Men First Class, a movie that, if you listen to our podcast on it, you know my feelings on. And he was really, really good in Days of Futures Past, and those are the only things I've ever seen him in. And I heard he was good in some other movies, so I put some other movies on there. It also looked like a movie that, was reasonably something I would probably be into. A heist movie.
It did have the word heist in the description, so...
Yeah. That was inaccurate.
Yeah.
But it was a different kind of movie that I also happen to like. Hold on. That's why it was on my list, if you would like me to go full on defending your life on it.
No. I didn't mean like that. Just, you explained the movie because you picked it, sort of.
Okay. Essentially, the movie is a very simple sort of cop suspense drama. The opening is kind of a cold open. They don't really explain much.
No.
But you get it over the course of 10 minutes, 11.
It was about 20. Before everything kind of settled.
Yeah, but it becomes, the narrative thread becomes pretty clear pretty quick.
Yeah, I suppose.
Essentially, it is cop, James McAvoy, is chasing and obsessed with criminal, that would be Mark Strong's Jacob Stern.
I just spilled root beer all over my knee.
Thank you for that.
Just fucking missed my mouth entirely.
Yeah, Mark Strong is playing Jacob Stern. He's criminal. He almost catches him, but criminal gets away after shooting James McAvoy's character Max in the leg. 3 years later, that's the sort of cold open. 3 years later, Max is has sort of permanently been lamed by the leg injury. He's struggling with it, and Jacob, the criminal, is retired, but his son ends up having to jump out of an airplane that's getting ready to leave. It's not in the air yet. It's just taxiing, and he runs across a tarmac because he's been shot. He calls his father, tries to explain briefly what's going on, but he's been shot and he's confused, so he doesn't get to do a very good job. So Jacob has to come back to England from where he was in hiding, in Iceland, and find the guy who shot his son. Max finds out that his son is someone who got shot, and he's already investigating a shooting with, I believe, the same gun is what they say. So he believes that the guy who got the one who got away is involved somehow, and that sets them on a collision course. There's twists and turns from there. If you want the spoiler-free version, I think we can do that for this movie.
Yeah, let's go ahead and give the spoiler-free review. I'll go first because yours is going to be more positive. This movie tells a mediocre story with Like, this could have been really good. They had a great concept. It just didn't execute it that well. Like, it fell a lot in the execution. But it uses interesting twists and interesting vehicles to tell the story at the same time. So there's a lot of peaks and valleys here. The acting is great from everyone. There's a few good lines. I think we've been hitting a lot of sixes, so I'm going to say it was about a 6. I liked it better than...
iBoy?
Yeah, than iBoy.
I think, honestly, I did too.
Only a little bit. I guess it was less offensive than iBoy. Like, as much as the beginning of this movie I spent kvetching...
no, you spent the beginning of this movie giving this movie open shit.
Well,
my favorite line was, "Man enters room manfully."
Because he did. But, like, I didn't fully understand the character at that point, and he continued to manfully do things. But, like, this was a conscious decision on this character's part. Yeah, it's... I don't know. If you are the kind of person who really just watches, like, action, suspense, crime movies... And those people are, plenty.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of them.
Yeah, well, no, you watch comic book shit and all kinds of other shit. I'm talking about the people who, sit around and go, "Okay, USA, what do you got for me?"
That.
I think this would probably be, pretty high on your list. For people who watch a larger breadth of movies and, see a lot of really good shit, like certain comic book movies and...
Yeah, that's fair. I would say, as someone who's more fond of this particular style of, like, gritty action, drama, suspense sort of thing, especially British movies with those descriptors on them. I'm very fond of those, actually. Mm-hmm. I'd say it was a fine execution of those. Like, it's not gonna stand out for me. It was tropey to a certain extent. It didn't do a whole lot to paint outside the numbers, but you don't always have to. This was a simple story that was very emotionally grounded, and the actors delivered the emotion well. And the suspense thriller gives you lots of nice twists and possible red herrings, and sort of leads you down false paths a couple times, and that's nice.
Yeah, like, really, the only failure in execution was... I feel like the whole thing could have just tried a little harder.
Really? Because I believe if I were to describe it as try hard, you would agree with that.
I don't even know if that's the case. I think the primary character was try hard as fuck.
I think that was his primary, like, motivation and character conflict.
Like... This is what you expect out of a Guy Ritchie film before you've seen a Guy Ritchie film.
Yeah, that's actually really... This is the sort of hard-boiled action you would expect out of that sort of thing before you've seen the weird quirkiness that Guy Ritchie brings to the shit.
It lacks the extreme amounts of character. It lacks that Tarantino-esque edge.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd say the characters are well done, but ultimately not terribly unique. With one notable exception, I'm going to highlight Roy, as played by Peter Mullen. Roy was a delight.
Yes. Roy will be called Scotty and Crabface, I believe, in turn.
Yes.
But honestly, the acting was phenomenal. The writing was okay.
The acting, yeah, that's good. That's fair.
But I don't think the characters were sold well.
I think the movie counts on you to already know the tropes it's doing.
Well, and, like, knowing the tropes is one thing, but the characters are another thing. Like, it's asking me to fill in a lot of blanks in the first place, and then to even further fill in these blanks about these characters.
Or to wait for the movie to fill in the blanks, because it does after a certain point.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to follow it until it does so, and that's not going to be true for everyone.
No, because I was getting really frustrated early on in this movie. I think we've gotten past the spoiler-free version. Like we said, I'd give it a 6 on our little scale that we accidentally created. It's hard to really say what that is. It was okay. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either. There were good parts. There were lame parts. Nothing too hateful.
I would agree. I think we might slightly disagree on which parts were which.
Sure.
But yeah, it was ultimately a really enjoyable experience for me. I wouldn't call it a great movie, but it was a fine movie.
I don't regret watching it.
There was nothing wrong with it.
If I could go back in time and not watch it, I also might elect to do something else.
That's fair. I don't think I would. I think I was satisfied by that experience. Spoilers ahead.
Yep. So what frustrated me with this movie is, and it's partially not the movie's fault, because we have a sound bar, and 9 times out of 10, the sound bar is amazing. It creates really good 3D sound. It's really extra helpful when we're playing games like Overwatch that, take advantage of that. It's very immersive, but in certain dialogue-heavy scenes or amateur mixed audio, like when I try to watch one of my videos that aren't the podcast on the TV, sometimes like game audio and stuff that is quiet on my headphones or on computer speakers is really fucking loud on the TV, whereas the dialogue is not. Or I've noticed in Game Grumps videos, you can barely hear the game audio, whereas if I've got headphones plugged in, oh, there it is. But in here, it wasn't being helped by the fact that unless the scene was in an echoey location,
the people speak to a certain extent like actual people. There's a lot of people who don't clearly enunciate and try and project everything they say.
Sure, and it's just something you get used to in acting, I guess. But these guys were... I'm not going to go to the extremes I did earlier because I'm not having a go, but they were just close talking without actually being close to me, so it was really hard to understand them.
I think mumbling is a fair way of saying it.
There was a lot of mumbling. There was a lot of really breathy under their normal speaking tone dialogue that was plot critical.
Yeah, I think, that's sort of in this genre of movies, because I'd like to think I have a decent amount of experience with this genre of movies, that's usually a trick that they'll have actors do to try and increase the intimacy of a scene or increase the tension.
Yeah, I get it, and it's like it works in the ideal setup, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But when you fucking mix audio, you have to mix it for not the ideal setup.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think it is, like you mentioned, our soundbar is fine in almost every scenario, and then we run across the odd thing where it's just really hard to, whatever the mix is not a mix we like, and I don't know how to change the settings on this fucking thing, so I don't know how to fix that, because I'm sure there's a setting change that would fix it, but I don't know what it is.
It's not got a visual interface, so that doesn't help.
No, it's just there's dots, so we kind of have to guess. So here's here's another example: is Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is, if it's not on absolute max volume, it actually can get kind of hard to hear people talk. But then a dragon will show up, and fucking everyone in the room will lean back half an inch because of the noise blowout.
Yeah, I was actually hesitant to turn up the volume. We ended up going with Netflix's delightful subtitles. But just because...
Which I think enhanced the experience.
I agree a little bit. Because it's not entirely the accents, I'll say that. I'm a little out of practice. I haven't watched a lot of British stuff where people aren't projecting.
But we were roughly equidistant from the soundbar, and I never really had a problem.
Sure. So, I don't know. It's hard to say. There was shit that I just could not understand. Once we had the subtitles on, I was like, okay, I get what's going on here. Cool. And that alleviated a lot of my frustrations, because I felt like I was missing shit, and in some cases I wasn't. They just hadn't decided to tell me yet, or some cases I was.
Sack of shattered crabs.
Yeah.
Smashed crabs.
And the name of the hotel that his son kept repeating, and I was like, I had it spot on, though, so...
But it sounded like gibberish.
Yeah, it sounded like fucking gibberish. And, I mean, This is for me as a person who, the first time I watched Snatch, I didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with Brad Pitt the first time I watched Snatch. You know, so it took me aback a bit to try and watch this fucking movie and be like, what was said here? Why am I not understanding this?
Like, it's just where
It's just a combination of like 6 things.
Yeah.
And, you know, that you were paying more attention to the movie than I was.
That's also true.
Yeah, not that I was like not paying attention to it, just
you weren't. It hadn't earned getting you onto the couch.
God, no, it never did that. Also, blue.
I accidentally hit him up with another blue and teal.
It didn't even do like
Or teal and orange.
Do the blue and orange forever. It was just blue. Just everything was blue. Someone found a fucking box of free blue gels and we're like, let's go to town, boys!
Nan's house didn't have a blue gel.
You're right. Nan's house was a little greenish. That was nice. Sort of Nan-colored.
But, man, if you looked at the box art and read the blurb for this movie, and then we described a very important scene in the movie just taking place in Nan's house, you'd be very confused.
Honestly, I think Nan's house was the best scene in the film.
I think so, too. There was a lot of really good tension, a really good character dialogue from a character who'd been sort of flat before that, and, like, just fun interactions. And I liked Nan. You know, shout out to Nan, also.
I'm sure she watches the podcast.
Yeah, she's the listener. She and Ultimo Dragon, they hang out.
Dragon, yeah. But you talk for a while, because this was your movie.
Honestly, I don't know that I have a major wealth to say. I enjoyed the movie. I think that it did an interesting thing, which was which helps to illustrate a difference between American and British sensibilities. And you pointed this out, and I think you're right, in that in America, if we have a narrative about a cop who's a loose cannon cop who doesn't play by the rules, that guy's awesome. That guy's awesome, and we want to give him high fives, and he like smokes cigars and wipes tar off with a t-shirt. He's Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Last Action Hero. But in Britain, they did and this happens actually a lot with like loose cannon cop characters. I've seen this before in a couple different movies. If there's like an unstable, like strained sort of loose cannon cop, he's not portrayed positively. It is portrayed as a risk, and as like while he might be necessary to get the job done, he's a risk to things. Like, I think the television show Luther with Idris Elba does a really good job of portraying the same thing. And that Luther is excellent at his job, and so is Max in this movie. But, like, the fact that they're what?
I disagree with Max being excellent at his job.
No, he is. He puts it all together. He manages.
I don't think he did.
There's a big scene at the end where he described everything that happened.
He did after the fucking other guy told him all this shit.
No, like they don't show him telling him anything, and he gives
him like 75% of the plot, like a scene ago.
No.
Yeah, when they're in Nan's house.
Like he doesn't though. They speak in vague generalities. Like, he gives him enough to be the last piece in the puzzle.
I suppose, but it's a pretty big piece.
Like,
it's like a 5-piece puzzle, and the other 4 pieces were the corners.
I just don't agree. Like, we could fucking debate this.
I guess, but like, regardless of him, okay, he put it together.
But anyway, that's not the point I'm making. It's a bit of a digression.
No, I suppose.
Try and drag my point off topic.
Well, I know
he was bad.
I just don't think he was a good cop.
I disagree. I think the movie shows he was a great cop. They did a bunch of things where, like, there was a scene where reminiscent of Willem Dafoe in fucking that movie everyone loves that Daryl was in that I can't remember the name of.
Boondock Saints.
Yeah, thank you.
Willem Dafoe in that movie was also a bad cop.
But he wasn't. He was a good cop because he understands intrinsically sort of what's going on. They do this scene with Max in this movie where he reconstructs the firefight that happened in the hotel room, and he understands what happened, and like he can kind of get the order of events.
Let me maybe make a clarifying statement here that there is a difference between being a good detective and a good cop.
That's fair. I meant good detective.
Okay, I don't disagree with that necessarily. I think he's a shitty cop.
That's the point.
Right.
That's literally, you're literally just saying the point I was making, which is that Luther and this character are good detectives, but they're shit cops. Them being around, it makes things harder for everyone else to do their job.
It actually harkens back as far as, and I'm sure farther, but this is my earliest experience with it, as far as A Clockwork Orange. Because in the original book, there's a final chapter that's missing from the American version, and obviously not at all present in Stanley Kubrick's film, where, like, it's years later, and Alex is, like, gotten over his shit, thinking about settling down with a lady, not being a horrible jackass anymore. And kind of like the moral being, you know, we all have our crazy youth, but eventually...
It's time to put it away.
Yeah.
You know, it's time to get real.
And while I agree with that and disagree with it in certain strides, it does echo that same, you know, United Kingdom sensibility of don't rock the boat for no reason. And especially this character who I feel is portrayed with, like, such an extreme hate on for the other main character. I forget his name already.
Lucas, I believe. I'll check it. I'll check.
Jack? Anyway.
Jacob. I wasn't even close. You were much closer. He was Mark Strong.
Yeah.
It was James McAvoy farting.
Don't fart, Mark Strong. I don't watch that movie.
But I think he's portrayed with an appropriate amount of unlikability.
Yes. I think he's... I don't know, and that's actually what I really liked about this movie was the duality. Like, I didn't get at first that Max was supposed to be perceived negatively. I thought they were trying to sell us this character as, this is your guy to love, and that wasn't the case. He was just one of the facets through which we watched this series of events unfold.
He was a point of view character, not a protagonist.
Right, and we had 2 point of view characters, and those points of view eventually merged, but...
yeah, and I think overall Jacob is a much more sympathetic character.
I agree.
Because ultimately Max is struggling and he's in a lot of pain. That's made really clear. He's in a lot of constant pain, and he has a lot of reasons to be upset. But ultimately, he's not upset about, you know, his leg injury or the fact that the guy got away, or the fact that he got, you know, punished for it in the police department when it wasn't his fault, or any of that. He's ultimately upset because it made him feel unimportant. It made him feel small. And he can't stand that.
Yeah, and, like, he does not even begin to handle it like an adult.
No. As a matter of fact, after, spoilers, his best friend and partner, who there's some romantic subtext with, is killed, and his career has, like, been destroyed. They found her dead in his apartment because they set it up that way, like the bad guys. And, like, he's being held at gunpoint, and someone just tried to kill him. The first question he asked Jacob is, "Why didn't you shoot me? Why didn't you shoot me at the?"
And I love that too, and I love Jacob's response, which was, "Why would I?"
Which is both, it fits Jacob because Jacob's a professional. He's a thief, not a murderer.
Yeah.
Well, he is also a murderer, but he's a thief first. He's not going to kill you if he doesn't have to. And it's not like the cops didn't know who this guy was. They knew who he was, so he didn't have to kill him for seeing his face or anything. So there was no point in killing him. He was no longer a threat. He was no longer going to chase him. Just leave him. Whatever. It's not important. That's very professional, and it's also the most effective just gut punch to Max's character because the line is, "Why didn't you shoot me?" "What for?" "You're so unimportant to me as a person that I had no reason to shoot you at all."
Oh, and it really dives into the guy's psyche. Is like, you know, well, both of them really. That he's so obsessed that this other guy has to have had some sort of masterminded reason as to not shoot me. He wanted to torture me, and he's like, "No, I just didn't feel like shooting nobody that day."
It's just, and you were so it was Tuesday, and you could tell it just impacted that dude on a fundamental level because he built up such an internal narrative about that moment, And for the person on the other end of that narrative, it wasn't important at all, which was just great.
I don't even know if it was an It Was Tuesday moment. I really think it was more pragmatism.
Yeah.
And
why would I shoot this guy?
Yeah,
it's unnecessary.
What's the point?
Well, but yeah, like, I meant sort of in hindsight.
Sure. So from Max's point of view, in hindsight.
Yeah.
But that's his whole movie, is that Max is like fucking chomping at the bit to do anything, and he will be violent, and he will be.
And he's
crazed.
got, like, he's going to try and have, like, the British reserve about it. He's going to try and hold it in and not make a fuss.
Barely.
But he just can't. It's boiling inside him. It's boiling over every moment of every day. It's all he can think about is that... And they explain it later in the movie. This was apparently Max's first big assignment.
Sure.
And, like, he worked super hard, and he did super well, and he did better in trying to catch this criminal, Jacob, than anyone ever had before, and he got this close to catching him single-handedly, and he was almost a bloody hero, and he just got all snatched away in one moment, along with his, physical health. So he spent a whole, 3 years just building this up in his mind, so that when something even remotely related to this character comes in, to Jacob, his son, gets shot, Max immediately crafts this arcane Machiavellian scheme that Jacob must have had and assumes he's behind everything, when it's completely illogical and everyone calls him on it, because it just has to be. It has to be that guy behind everything, because then I can get him, and then I win, and then I'm not a nobody anymore. They pretty much directly say that. They have Max say almost that direct line, and I think that's really good.
Yeah, I think it is too, and I think it ties well into the actual ending. Where they've taken out the entire big plot, and for some reason they change guns, and Jacob doesn't have a gun anymore, and Max is holding him at gunpoint, and then just lets him go.
Jacob still has a gun. He still
just
has
not
one.
holding
He's
it
just
up.
not holding it at. He's not holding it at James. At Max, and Max already has a gun on him. So if he tries, he'll just shoot him. But they have that. They have the Vin Diesel, Paul Walker moment where like he lets him go. He lets him go, and thus lets go of the obsession. Lets go of the toxic shit infecting his life, like the toxic pus infecting his leg, ruining his ability to live.
Yeah, I mean, was this based on a book? Could you look that up for me? Because I feel like this would have been a better novel. I feel like...
You feel like they needed more time?
Not even time. I feel like we needed more intimacy. And I'm not saying don't beat us over the head with it. The acting did a good job of that, but I just feel like all the stuff I'm missing from this movie, like on a connective level, could have been delivered through really good narration. With Max especially.
Yeah, it has a noir feel that isn't...
Yeah. With Jacob, actually, I feel like he was portrayed so well, like that you get him. Or maybe I just connect to him easier on an emotional level. Maybe he and I just happen to be, more similarly minded than Max and I. And
Jacob also has a much more sympathetic and easily enterable story.
Yeah.
He's a retired criminal who's living on a farm, and his son is shot, and he has to go back into the world of crime to try and find the guys who shot his son. It's a very simple revenge story.
Sure.
And it honestly only intersects with Max's story at certain points. It really is like a Jean Valjean sort of Javert dynamic, and it really works.
Yeah, it does. I wish it worked better. Like, I wish there was more...
No, this is a movie, my dude.
Just a movie? Okay. I wish there was more standout, I wish there were cooler moments. And they did some, man. They did some really cool stuff. There were some really good shots. There were some really good moments. It just wasn't... and this comes back to the title a little bit. Not so much that it's stupid or a stupid thing to name this film.
Although it is.
But with a name for a movie like Welcome to the Punch, that really is evocative of that... What is it, the subgenre they call Guy Ritchie films?
I don't know.
I can't remember off the top of my head. But it is evocative of that style of movie. And, I mean, what's the guy's name? Mark Black?
Which
actor?
one? Jacob?
Yeah.
Mark Strong.
Mark Strong. with the characters he's played and the fact that he's been in, I think, 3 Guy Ritchie movies, you know, you've got that actor leading things up as the second lead, I suppose. And this name, this kick-ass kind of, you know, yeah, I'm in for like a thrill ride and it's going to be fun action. And it's really understated and like, and not even quite gritty. It's just really, it's modern noir, but like with all the, I keep wanting to say character, but like that seems so incongruous because the characters are so deep, you know? It's got a lot of the flavor pulled off of it.
Yeah, the thematics.
Yeah, the thematics. Yeah, and I mean, like I said, this whole movie is blue, and not even like in a striking way, just...
But at the same time, there are some really good shots.
There are some really good shots. Like, I don't know maybe if this needed more time, or it needed somebody in different places to be doing better shit with what they had. Like, if this movie was made by someone else, not even necessarily someone as good as Guy Ritchie, or Robert Rodriguez springs to mind as well.
Somebody with a vision.
Yeah, anybody with a vision stronger than what we had here, I think it would have been a really strong movie. I wouldn't be surprised if this movie didn't fail to live up to the writer-director's vision.
Yeah, like, you wouldn't be surprised if they interviewed him and he was just like, it's kind of, you know, it's not really the...
Yeah.
No movie comes out perfect sort of thing.
I read an article interviewing Rob Zombie recently, and he mentioned that ever since The Devil's Rejects, he's been trying to chase that high again with every movie. He feels like it was just, if he was going to make a movie, that was the perfect one, and he's trying to meet that point, and he hasn't gotten to it. And while I do like all of his movies,
he's right.
Yeah, you can really feel. I mean,
you can feel like Devil's Rejects sings in a way none of his movies since have,
and you can just tell
when a movie goes right, when it's singing, when the band's tuned up and everything's going according to the right rhythm, you can feel it. You just know. And I think you're right. I think Welcome to the Punch doesn't have that. It's a good movie.
And I think if it had
but it's out of step.
I think if it had that, it would have sung really well. I think this could have been a really phenomenal movie. It just didn't click.
Yeah.
So, but I'm crapping on it here a little bit, but it's not bad.
No, I mean, I clearly mentioned that I enjoyed it earlier.
Yeah. It's not my part of the action genre.
No, it's my part of the action genre.
This is your list continues to haunt me. But it wasn't bad for what it was. And if you are a fan of action in general, it's cool. I mean,
I have other movies I'd recommend first.
Sure, same.
But
like a Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, I mean any of those. Sure.
Like Revolver or
like you give me some sass. You give me some joshing for liking that particular subgenre, but you're the one who introduced me to Guy Ritchie movies, so you have no one to blame but yourself.
And you know, I just find the dichotomy interesting, and it's a quality control thing as well. Like, I like these movies less in general, because in general these movies aren't as good as the ones I like.
Whereas for me, I like them because they're in that genre. I'm willing to accept a sort of a drop in quality to enjoy that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything else to say about the film, really.
No, I mean, we could probably keep talking for a while.
Yeah, but it was a fun experience. I think you're right. I think it was very, very close to being an amazing movie. And I think that's honestly kind of making me more fond of it than it maybe deserves.
That's fair. I think it was close to being an amazing movie on page. I don't think it was in execution. I think there's a lot of nuance there. There's a lot of stuff to explore. There's a lot of character notes that really could resonate with a person. It just... Man, but a half step better, and it would have really been a winner.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the part of Netflix Roulette where we tell them what we got for next time.
Yeah, next time we have Turbo Kid.
Super.
I do not know why you're not excited about a post-apocalyptic superhero movie.
Because I've seen the screenshots from it.
Yeah.
And I recognize when something has its tongue so firmly in its cheek that I'm going to hate hearing it talk because it's going to have mush mouth.
So it's going to be like my experience with the beginning of this film.
Yeah, pretty much. Only with, like, infinity more smugness.
Yeah, but no, it's not about smugness. You liked Kung Fury.
Not all that much. Oh, no, I'm thinking of Kung Pao. Kung Fury was fun.
Kung Fury was fun.
Kung Fury was fun, but, like, Kung Fury was also short.
I am a little worried about the runtime. I will be perfectly. But it's only an hour and a half, much like this film,
I liked Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon.
Yeah.
And if it goes all the way to Blood Dragon or Kung Fury levels, I think I'll have a good time.
I feel like this movie's a bit more earnest than that.
That's the problem, is that there's this big gulf before you get to that level of, like, detached absurdity that I find really insufferable.
I feel like we're going to get... I like this predictive stuff, by the way. This is good. But I feel like we're going to get something that's a less comedic Tank Girl.
I can, like, the comedic parts of Tank Girl are amazing, but I can only hope. I like this. I want to keep doing this. The
Let's try to
where we call our shots for next time. That's fun.
We did it with the first movie, I believe, or with this movie. I believe the gasping and the moaning and the gnashing of the teeth from me.
Yeah. All right. Well, everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Fuck it, let's get hard.